Hello, beautiful people. You are listening to the Communal Table podcast, part of Food and Wine Pro. I am your host, senior editor of Food and Wine, Kat Kinsman. And wow, my guest today is, what a busy, busy man. I will note also, this is not the first thing he has recorded with Food and Wine. Today, he recorded Sip, Savor, Spit with my colleague, Ray Isle. And they made sure that nobody was too tipsy made. But maybe we're in a cool, happy place for this right now. But I've got the Avett Brothers, Kwon. Welcome.
Oh my God, so good to finally be here.
Oh, yeah, we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just saying, you are the first person who has been on this podcast who is not specifically in the food industry, but there is a reason you're here.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Well, the way I met you, I'd been hearing like, hey, you know that Kwon from Avett Brothers, like, you know, he's a big foodie and he hangs out with the chefs and all this stuff. And I think technically the first time I met you was at a Southern Foodways Alliance lunch at Butter.
Yeah.
There's a thing every year called the Southern Mafia lunch that they have sort of during James Beard weekend. And I was thinking, like, there's a rock star at the table. It's really, really cool. But then the next time I encountered you, you were actually doing the cooking at an event. Can you talk a little bit about how this all happened?
Sure. I think that might be a little over exaggeration because I think I was like assisting Sam cooking. I at that point I was really trying to learn how to cook whole hog, and who better than to learn how to cook whole hog than Sam Jones?
Yeah, a little bit of context on him. He is based in Ayden, North Carolina, and maybe third, fourth generation pitmaster, something like that. And he's an artist of swine.
Yeah, and it's very clear when he tries to teach you how easy, quote unquote,
yes,
cooking whole hog is, when he's just like, yeah, you just gotta feed the fire. Like, got it. I can do that.
Oh my gosh. And then once you see him, and so much of his art is in how he chops whole hog.
Oh my God. Yeah.
As well. It's such a beautiful thing. He gets these giant wooden cutting boards.
Yeah. Custom made wooden cutting boards. Yeah.
And he's just going at it with if you're just listening to this, my arms are flailing and like two
cleavers, gigantic cleavers.
Oh my gosh. And he's actually got a guy who works for him named Chopper. who lives up to the title. It is a beautiful thing watching that man.
It really is. And you should see his forearms just from wielding these gigantic, like 4-pound cleavers all day long.
It's intense. And I think I met a woman. She, I don't remember if there was a tattoo or a shirt. It said Chopper's Girl.
Oh, no way. That's amazing.
It was pretty intense, but it is really, it's an art.
Yeah, it really is. Talking about Sam and what he does in his artistry, once you are separated from Sam and you try to cook your first whole hog by yourself, you really quickly realize what an art it is. And it starts with him like popping the skin of the whole hog, because it's beautiful. And the other thing is he doesn't use like probe thermometers or anything like that. He just has an ambient temp thermometer on the top of his cooker. It's a non-insulated cooker that he uses, or he uses cinder block formed, pits. And his skill of just being able to hear what the skin sounds like, to know when it's ready, I'm blown away by, because I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just listening. It's like, God, it's quite beautiful.
And for him, the skin in particular is important because it gets chopped into the meat, and that is part of the joy.
That is my favorite part. Yeah, for
sure. It's such a beautiful thing. It also really helps that he's like the local fire chief, or somehow he's on that. So if you're working with fire, it really helps to know what you're doing on that front as well. And you were crafting these beautiful bowls that also had some greens by another not slouch in the kitchen.
Yeah. Ashley Christensen was there with Sam, and we were just talking about this, and I'm pretty sure it was a spoon-bread cornbread with these collards. Either it was collards or some other bitter green with topped with Sam's barbecue and maybe some slaw, maybe, I'm thinking. I can't remember.
It was really texturally so
amazing,
Like eyes roll back in your head, like just one of those moments where you're just happy to be in possession of a tongue.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Man.
And you were hustling back there.
Man, I don't remember very well, but I'm glad I was hustling. Oh, that's good.
So how'd you get wrapped into this whole food world?
I think it started because I really am not sure how my kind of love of food and preparation in the kitchen came about, other than my earliest memories of cooking with my mom,
Mhm.
who my mom and my grandmother, amazing cooks. My grandmother cooked every meal of my childhood for me. My mom cooked the other parts of those meals. And I just would watch. I would sit across from her on the island the cooktop would be in the island, and I would just watch what she's doing and kind of see the movements. And I've always been fascinated by the movements of food preparation that go on. In a way, it's kind of related to music. It's almost a practiced movement of how much salt you pick up, how much soy sauce you put in this dish, how much sesame oil, these like key dishes that I would pick up. And I think that slowly translated into, I think I just love watching food being made with love. It's a time that people gather, and kind of all the negativity, hopefully, slides away.
Yeah.
And you can just gather around food that was made to nourish and made with love. And that's beautiful.
That is a lovely
Beautiful.
thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about food in your family. So you grew up in the same town as my husband,
Yeah.
which is fantastic and random that is the thing. So you were born in Seoul.
I was born in Incheon, which is just outside Seoul.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yes.
Moved to Archdale, North Carolina when I was 1, and then moved to High Point when I was 5.
Okay. So what the heck brought your family to North Carolina?
Yeah, this is I did not know this, and this is something that's very cultural. You don't really ask about your past
Mhm.
to your parents.
Really?
It's just a thing that you don't do. You don't reminisce about how did this happen, kind of thing. But my wife, being the scientist that she is, was like, "What brought you to America?" Just outright.
How'd that go over?
It was great because my mom is very much Americanized at this point. Her values were always progressive for a Korean immigrant, because my grandfather, my mom's father, was the same way in Korea. He was a very like forward thinking individual, but my mom was just like, "Oh well, this is what happened," and just like all at once,
Were you just
I
sitting
found
there
out
like, oh my God.
and I'm like, why did I never ask this?
Was it just something stopping you? Something like, oh, we just don't do this?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of that I knew that was just something you didn't ask. Like,
Yeah.
well, how did we end up in Archdale, North Carolina?
So what was the story?
So, back in the 70s, there was a United States program that brought professionals from outside of the country to rural towns in America. And this is also coming from kind of a mixture of my mom's like my mom recollecting how this all went down. But he was brought to Archdale, North Carolina. My uncle was brought because he was a doctor, and he set up a family practice in Archdale, North Carolina, which no one listening to this podcast is going to know where Archdale, North Carolina is.
I sort of do.
Yeah, but you do if you're
only
from High
because,
Point. Yeah, because it's the next town over from High Point, the gigantic metropolis, which is High Point, North Carolina. It's the neighboring town that then connects to it connects to I-85 south or north. And I-85 is right down the other edge of Archdale. And so he moved here, and my aunt was living here, and my aunt was like, "There's just so much land here." Mind you, we're moving from Korea. Incheon, Korea is very densely populated. Seoul obviously is.
So it's a city then?
It's a city as well. Yeah, it's where the military base is.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of people know Incheon because of the military base. And so my aunt was like really selling Archdale, North Carolina to my mom, and so we moved in 1981.
Because it's easy to move with a 1-year-old.
Yeah, and I had 2 older sisters who were 7 and 10 years older than me.
Wow.
I was kind of an accident, clearly.
Happens.
Yeah.
So is my husband.
Yeah. And so we moved to Trinity, which is an even smaller town than Archdale. But
Yeah, and so you're one, you're growing up. So what do meals look like? So you and your mom and your sisters are there, and then you have some extended family
My
as
yeah,
well.
my aunt and uncle, and then her two kids, their two kids, who were very similar in age to my sisters.
Okay.
Um, so it was very super close family right off the bat. We had, I tell this story a lot. Like most people have yearly family reunions.
Hmm.
We had weekly, sometimes bi-weekly family reunions.
Haven't seen you in
A
hours.
day, yeah. So much so that my cousin, we lived 5 minutes away from my aunt, and my cousin would sneak into my parents' van, hide underneath the back seat of the van, so that she could spend the night over at our house.
Oh.
Yeah, like that's how we kind of grew up. And so we had this weird mixture of Korean food, the
Hmm.
best Korean food in North Carolina, no doubt. Like I'm
Yeah.
positive of it. And then my mom or my aunt's like representation of a southern dish they might have tried at
Okay.
like Biscuitville.
Okay,
You know?
let's talk through this. I love this so much because I love to talk with friends whose parents were immigrants, maybe first gen or
Sure.
something like that, and trying to interpret those particular dishes, but
Oh,
through a
so
different
funny.
lens. A friend of mine tells me about the kind of like spaghetti and meatballs that his mother,
Yeah.
who grew up in Mexico,
Oh God.
made,
Yeah.
and he loves it so much. But he would get embarrassed like if friends came over,
Sure.
and
Sure.
so talk me through what. Okay, first explain what Biscuitville is to the people who do
Oh
not know the
gosh, yeah.
glory and the
Sorry.
majesty of Biscuitville.
Biscuitville to me is like the tenderloin biscuit. Just
Yes.
like what I got. My dad would order the tenderloin biscuit,
Mhm.
which is not necessarily tenderloin, but
I get the
uh,
bologna one
yeah,
sometimes.
it's like what's the best like example? It's like Bojangles, but localer.
And so you can drive through
It's a
and
drive-through, yeah.
actually Sunrise Biscuit Kitchen
Oh, in
too.
Chapel Hill, yeah.
Oh my
That's a
God.
great one too.
But yeah, all these places like drive up windows and you look in if you happen to go in there and you see the arms of the women who make these biscuits.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, just like guns for
Yeah, for
days.
sure. And they have a window so you can watch them making it in a huge tub of lard sitting there. And
Mhm.
you're like, oh, it's legit. They're using lard.
Mhm.
They're not using shortening, they're using lard.
Those are some damn
So
fine
good.
biscuits.
Yeah.
So your mom sees this biscuit and she thinks, "I'm gonna make that." So what is her
I mean,
her
it's
spin?
just like the dense, but I don't even know what to call it, probably.
Biscuits are hard.
They're extremely difficult, especially if you don't know what what's in them.
Yeah,
You know?
but somebody has to teach you. It's one of those things where, I learned by, I grew up on Bisquick.
Yeah.
So it's not like I
Yeah,
had,
sure.
somebody in my family who was I grew up in Kentucky, but not like kind of the biscuit part of
Yeah.
Kentucky.
Nice.
And my mom's cooking is kind of like, high school home ec kind of cooking. So I didn't learn this thing. Whereas my husband, he had his me mama there,
Yeah.
like making biscuits on top of, I think it was a pillowcase
Oh
or
wow.
something in like Eastern
Okay.
Carolina,
Man.
like not far from where Bill Smith grew up. And
Okay.
so he sort of had that method. He didn't make them himself, but I was like, damn it, I'm going to master biscuits.
That's a great thing to do.
Oh, I spent a year on it.
Yeah. I mean, what that especially if you perfect it and then someone who's a southerner comes and
Mhm.
visits you, you can be like, "Hold on a second. Hold my beer," you know?
Yeah, I'm like, I got
That's
pretty
that's some bonus
good.
points right
So
there.
your mom's a scientist then?
No.
Or
My
or
mom was a musician.
okay.
My dad was a musician, and they owned laundromats in High Point,
Oh,
when they
wow.
moved here.
Okay, are the laundromats still there?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't been back to High Point in ages.
Yeah, I'm thinking like it's
Yeah.
just give context about High Point.
Yeah.
It's not small, it's not big. It's got
But it's an
sprawl.
international city.
Yes, it is because there's High Point University.
Yeah. Well, what put High Point kind of in the international world is that
Mhm.
biannually there's this thing called the furniture market.
Huge.
Massive. And every major furniture maker, designer comes to High Point, North Carolina,
Mhm.
and displays their newest designs for, I think it's a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about like Italian couch makers, like people from everywhere come to this town and just show their furniture.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then it's got a whole separate wholesale purchasing side of it that resellers can come in, like for instance, Restoration Hardware will send buyers to buy their next line of, tufted couches at
Yeah.
the furniture market, rebrand it, sell it in their stores. And that's that's why High Point exists. Now, with the invention of the internet and the ability for the global market to come to everyone's houses, it kind of damaged the kind of market of High Point. Even though now there still is it still exists. The furniture market does, but the actual grandness of it's kind of been diluted.
It's an interesting thing. My nephew is about to debut his furniture line.
Oh, cool.
It's all from hemp stuff.
Oh, cool.
Folks buy Hurd and Bast
Right.
like from different parts of the hemp plant, and we're all so excited for him. And my extended family gets really incredibly excited about Furniture Mart because they all rent their houses out to
Yeah.
very rich people.
Yeah, because you cover your year with it.
Yeah, you can pretty much pay for your summer home or
Right,
your beach
right.
house. People there have beach
Yeah.
houses out there. But dining wise, it's been an interesting sort of thing because I go there and all I want to do is go to the K&W cafeteria,
Sure.
get some barbecue, either drive to Lexington or go to Carter Brothers Barbecue.
Okay, I've never been to Carter
Okay,
Brothers.
Carter Brothers is kind of amazing because they're very, very Christian, which is lovely. Like they do all this charity work, especially on the big holidays, which is usually when I'm there. But there is this giant painting of an entire wall. And there is Jesus Christ there with wounds in his hands, and there's a little girl saying, "What happened to your hands?" And it's sort of an interesting thing to see while you're picking up your barbecue slaw, and yeah, so
Wow.
I'll send you the address. You should go and
And this is in High Point?
this is in High Point. Yeah,
Okay.
it's really good barbecue. I mean, like it's great. Nothing compares to Lexington.
Yeah, yeah. And Lexington's not far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I just want to go to K&W cafeteria when I get there and get a liver and onions,
Yeah.
a congealed salad.
Yeah. What's your meat? What's your veggies?
Yeah. Oh, my, you want a meat?
Yeah.
Milk, you please.
Yeah.
Want a meat? Gravy.
I mean, it's the thing. My grandfather's favorite place to go was K&W. So when he
How old
was,
is he?
Yeah, well, he's passed away. But he was
Oh, I'm sorry.
95.
That's the thing is like
You know?
you go in there and you were the average age is like 81 or something
Easily.
like that. Yeah.
But that's why I love it,
I love it so much.
because it is true to what it is. And I would go in there and I would have my 2 veggies and a meat.
What is your order?
I would get fried okra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I get the fried okra and the stewed okra sometimes if
Yep.
I'm doing a double. See, I have a okra tattoo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. I would get fried okra, and I would get the semblance of mac and cheese,
Yeah.
as my veggie.
Yep.
And then I would get the roast beef with the gravy.
Oh yeah, the chicken and dumplings are pretty righteous.
Oh, I got that sometimes too. Yeah.
Yeah, liver and onions
Yeah.
makes me really incredibly happy.
Yeah.
And then like if I'm still feeling it, like one of the big desserts, like
Yeah,
a
the
big, like,
Jello salad.
Yeah, well, so mostly the Jellos have the vegetable congeal
Uh-huh.
that I get is like the tomato aspect
Yep.
thing. Then what is your particular beverage there?
It would have to be sweet tea, but now it's really hard for me to drink sweet tea without getting like
Yeah.
jitters.
Do you get the half and half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that. Yeah.
Sweet or unsweet?
Yeah, like
is the-
half and half. Sorry.
There's an entire sorry, we've gone down this tangent, but I am obsessed with the kind of vocabulary around K&W cafeteria. And they were also a really sort of early front line in segregation breaking down. There were
Oh, okay.
protests at K&W, and so they were specifically at the one in Greensboro. Yeah. So there were, things that happened there. Then they were sort of I think on the earlier side of
Cool, I did
integration
not
and
know
stuff. Yeah,
this.
there's sort of a big history to it, but it is something that is so fundamental to there. But this all goes to say, there's not. It's more interesting when I go there now. It seems like there are more and more different kind of cuisines. Maybe it's just the decisions that I'm making while I'm there that I just go over these places with like extremely southern cafeteria stuff or barbecue, or we'll go to the place that only serves lunch and it's like $3.
Yeah.
We'll go to the Rainbow, which has
Yeah.
been around there for like 80 years, and your entire meal comes out at once and it's
Yeah.
one price. So what were your food adventures then while you were there? Did you dine out while you were there, or was it always home
Yeah,
cooking?
sure. It was mostly home cooking. I think my family would go out to eat once a month, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, there was no Korean restaurant,
Hmm.
and if you know anything about Koreans, all they want to eat is Korean food.
Hmm.
Um, because they know it and
Yeah.
they can kind of figure it out easier. But there was this lady in High Point who had a restaurant called Hunan. She lived in Korea for a while, and so she would make Korean dishes in the restaurant. But her Chinese food was also really great. So we, our family is rather large, but we would take this kind of side room, which had like 30 seats, take over the whole room.
So your family fit. Okay, so when you
Yeah,
said like, how many people are in this extended family?
over 30.
Wow.
Yeah, cousins and everything. Like we would fill up the room, and the kids were all young at this point. We're all I'm talking like under 10 for
Hmm.
most of us, maybe half of us or something like that. So one thing that really like it was a thing with us was the kids would just run around and
Yeah.
like wreak havoc. And as a grown up, I'm like, why didn't they stop us? But it was because we had that room,
Right.
you
And it's
know.
the 80s. It's
Yeah, and we just could eat these like Korean dishes that we couldn't get anywhere else that my
Mhm.
mom maybe didn't want to cook, that night. So we
Yeah.
would, go and eat it here, and
Because
it was
there's a
great.
lot of really time, labor
Oh,
intensive.
everything in Korean food is like labor intensive until you cook it. Then it takes like 3 minutes to cook.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough that one of my dearest friends grew up in Seoul, and her mom comes a couple times a year and
Mm,
cooks for us
mhm.
and does this bounty
Yeah.
of stuff. But she'll, like, with the worst jet lag, Mama Yu will just do this
Yeah.
spread of like 20 some different dishes. There are
Yeah.
only a few other people who are allowed to cook, and they're like only Koreans are
Yeah.
allowed to cook.
Man.
And I sit down in that meal and I just feel like the luckiest woman on the planet, because I know that how much work she put into this. I know how much stuff she may have smuggled to make this all
All
happen.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know how much beef in kind of like plastic wrap you can fit into the lining of your suitcase? A fair amount. And
Yeah.
and she's pretty adventurous. She brought a crab once.
Oh,
She
that's
managed a crab.
I know this too well, and she probably like put in a Ziploc bag because
Oh yeah.
I got crab from Korea as well from my mom. It's this preserved crab in soy sauce.
Yeah.
It's a raw crab that's preserved in soy sauce, and she was like, "This was so good, I brought it back." I'm like, I don't know if I should eat this.
Right, right. Like, it's been in your
It's
luggage.
in your luggage. I get it. It's in soy sauce, but
You're a good Korean son, I'm
yeah.
sure. Well, so my friend actually, she ended up doing this so much that she started an importing business,
Oh,
and
that's
she
awesome.
she imports all these like jungs and like perilla oil and all
Okay,
this
I
stuff.
gotta get your
Gotham Grove.
yeah.
It's
Okay,
She's so badass. It's such
that's
fantastic
amazing.
stuff. Yeah, and she works like with the producers directly and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So you've got this great cluster of people around you and stuff.
Hmm.
And now I can say about High Point, my husband didn't necessarily fit in there. He was a weird music kid, and he was, he was a punk rock kid, and
Yeah.
he maybe at High Point Central or whatever like that stuck out like a sore punk, or
Hmm.
something, or new wave kid, and didn't work out so well for him. How'd it go for you?
I mean, honestly, it's really weird. I never have thought about this, like
Hmm.
whether or not I stuck out. I knew I stuck out
Hmm.
because I was one of like 5 Asian kids in the school,
Hmm.
but I was in, kindergarten with the same people I
Hmm.
was in school with all the way till 10th grade. When I moved to California to go to boarding school.
Hmm.
So I knew them my whole life.
Yeah.
Like every year, it's a small town. You go to the
Yeah.
same school. So like kindergarten through 10th grade,
Hmm.
I just grew up with these kids. So
Okay.
to me, when you're a kid, you
Hmm.
don't see like weird, race things at all.
Hmm.
You're just like, oh, it's just Joe I grew up
Well,
with him.
I think it depends on where you grow
True,
up.
true, yeah. But I mean, between children,
Yeah. Yeah.
like a kindergarten kid's not gonna be like, oh, you're Asian. It's just gonna be like, let's play Legos.
I will say the experience different where I grew up.
Really?
Where yeah, I grew up in northern Kentucky, and it was pretty homogenous, and people were not kind to people who,
Interesting.
yeah, it was not a great thing at all.
I mean, I've definitely faced racism in school growing up, but I had so many people supporting me, kind of the kids I grew up with, that it never became an issue. It obviously still pissed me off because, being that one of 5 Asian kids in school, you're going to be like, why would you say things like this, And it's a deep topic to get into because there's so many like aspects of being an Asian person that people kind of assume you're meek or you're passive or something, and I got big. Like, I'm a big Asian, and I was one of the few who would just be like, "What'd you say to me?" And that would be like, "Oh, that doesn't feel right. Like, why is this guy who's bigger than me? I'm supposed to make fun of him, not him confront me about it."
Yeah.
So it kind of played to my advantage in a lot of ways for me to be bigger and step up and be like, I'm not gonna take that from you.
That is a really, really good thing. And you also were a music obsessive.
I was, and that kind of turned. Yeah, I was kind of a nerd. Not kind of. I was a full-on nerd.
Same. Friend.
Yeah, I mean,
same.
I thought I was cool. I was a nerd.
So what? Explain your nerddom to me. Like, was it a music nerdiness? Was
totally.
It okay? So how did you find that was your thing?
I didn't find it. I was forced into it.
Okay.
Another weird aspect of growing up in a Korean family is that you have to play an instrument.
Aha.
You have to be good at specific topics in school. You have to be good in school in general, but sciences and mathematics you have to be really good at. Just because it's pounded into me at a very early age. But I was forced into playing cello so much so that my first cello lesson, I woke up from a nap and was taken to a cello lesson.
It sounds like you were abducted.
I was abducted
to a cello lesson. Yeah. At what age?
9.
How big are you in relation to the cello?
About the same size as the cello.
How did they decide cello for you?
I do not know. Again, I did not ask my mom. Why
I'm
cello?
getting people from your family on this podcast and asking them questions.
They would love it because they would just tell most embarrassing stories. It'd be hilarious.
So was anybody else in your family, your older siblings, are they playing?
Not the cello. So I was the first one in the family to play the cello. My mom played piano. My dad was a choral director. He sang. My mom sang louder than everyone else in church, of course. My sisters played piano. My middle sister picked up the violin later in life. My oldest sister picked up the cello after I started playing cello. But they were mostly piano. And there was just always music in the house. My dad listened to classical music on vinyl nonstop in the house. That's just like what he did.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of my music nerddom, was living behind a cello, which was great as an angsty teenager to have something like that.
I love the angsty. That's so emo.
Yeah.
It's so goth. The cello is one of the gothest instruments. So when you're thinking you love to do this, how many hours a week are you spending on this as a kid?
It varied. At the peak, 4 to 6 hours a day.
Was it out of want, out of necessity?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Most of the time, out of necessity, or being like, I wouldn't say yelled at, but guilted into like, you could be better if you just practice more.
Okay, yeah. Let's get to that. Korean parents and
great.
Disappointment.
The drive.
Are they at this point like? Do you get compliments from your family? Or they
God,
good job,
no. I would be embarrassed if I did.
Like, good job, Joe. We're proud of you. Like,
I would be embarrassed if I got a compliment from my mom. Wow. I would be like, oh, why?
Why are you doing that? What's wrong?
Yeah.
So is she hauling you to practice, to lessons, to rehearsals during this time? Like, what does this all look like for you?
a mixture of her and my aunts. It's kind of that communal vibe with being an immigrant family. The family's very close to one another,
Do
and
you
just
live near each other at all?
my whole like extended family lived like within 30 minutes of us,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
on my mom's side. And so we saw each other. That's why we had these bi-weekly family reunions. It would
Yeah.
be at one of our aunt's houses or my mom's, at my parents' house, and we just all get together because we eat Korean food, Yeah, and so there was some combination of parents driving me, or my sisters driving me, or my aunt driving me, or someone, kind of getting me to and fro. But yeah, it was weekly cello lessons, once a week orchestra when I was playing in orchestras, um, and then practicing at home.
So who's this person, or is there a person who at some point you're going through all this and you realize like, oh, this is the thing I'm doing all the time, who says like, you kid, you got something.
My cello teacher.
Tell me about them.
Yeah, she was this amazing teacher who I don't know how my mom found her, which is a story I wish I knew, and I will probably now ask. But she drops me off at this lady's house. Her name's Ruby Wenzel, and she's a cello teacher, and she's played for like 3 presidents, and she's done all these things in chamber music. She's like very well versed in classical music and an amazing teacher. And my first cello lesson, she was like, he understands this rather well. Like he understands the like mechanics of it. I'm 9 years old, so it's not like I have practiced sitting behind a cello. I'm like, I don't know what a cello is. But she was very nurturing in that respect. And from day one, it was just like, I think he could really get good at this. And just one day after another, it just kept, and I loved it. That's the thing. I remember loving the cello, having never seen a cello.
There's some cosmic thing that comes together here, like putting you with the right instrument. And
yeah, because I started on piano when I was 3. My mom tried to teach me piano. I hated it.
It's one of those things where, I took lessons for years and years and years, and it was just never kind of going to be the right thing. But for my husband, it just, duck to water. There's just something in him that knows it. And it was also for him this transportive thing, because he knew he sort of didn't fit in with the other kids at the country club and all these things, but like he could play the piano, and he could do it in the socially acceptable way, in that you can play at church, you can play play all the hymns and stuff, and and hey, look, he can do this, and his mother would sing in the choir and all this stuff. But then there's the subversive way of doing that too, where he was then in bands and did all of those things and kind of found his people through that. So you're doing this. Are there it's a funny thing when you realize yourself as an artist, when you care about this thing. My background's in visual art and stuff, and I remember when I finally met in high school during Governor's School for the Arts, the other kids who gave a damn about it, and I felt so much less isolated. What was the point at which you maybe met other people?
Oh man, it was when I went to boarding school in California.
Yeah.
Like it was eye-opening.
So, but the reason you went to boarding school was to play cello?
Cello, yeah. So that was, again, my cello teacher was like, he needs to get out of High Point. He needs to go play. Like he's getting good enough now where he needs to go and experience beyond what this town can offer. I like, for instance, our high school didn't have an orchestra. So I couldn't audition for All-State because you have to have a high school orchestra to do that. That kind of thing would happen. But they like somehow made accommodations because I was playing with the Greensboro Symphony Youth Orchestra, so I was able to go and audition for All-State Orchestra and stuff like that. But it was just like, he needs to get out and kind of experience a higher level of these things. And went to Idlewild, California. Idlewild School of the Arts. Yeah, it's an art school in the San Jacinto Mountain Range, kind of like a hippie commune of a town, but has this amazing arts school, dance, theater, theater tech, creative writing, pottery, photography,
God, that
and
sounds like heaven.
yeah, and music, and
Wow.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's a utopia for artists. It's just like
And weird kids, I imagine.
bunch of weird kids, bunch of very I don't know what the right word is for us, but we were driven
Mhm.
weird kids in that weird sect of art. Yeah.
It is a magical thing when you meet your
Yeah.
people like that, to realize, because otherwise, like, I was angsty teen in the basement painting Robert Smith on the wall, and sort of really very lonely in this way. Like, I got along with people at school. I had, I would absorb the art that I really liked, but then to find the other kids who made that too, like this one particular magical summer, and I know they have this in North Carolina, the
They
Governor's
do.
School for the Arts,
Yeah.
and we had it in Kentucky, and it just broke everything open
Yeah.
for me in a really particular way, and I was able to kind of relax in my skin. Well, part of me was like, oh God, everybody's so much cooler than I am, and
Yeah.
they'd
That
all
happens.
yeah, and you realize, like, oh my God, they know all these bands I don't.
Yeah.
And
They know how to do these things. I don't know how to do these things.
but I'm sure you brought something else to the mix too.
I don't know. Maybe. I hope I did. I'm pretty competitive,
Mhm.
which anyone in our band will tell you that. I don't even have to be competing in the thing to be competitive. Like, I can just be watching the thing, and like, if the team that I want to win isn't winning,
Mhm.
I'll throw things. Like, I'm like super competitive. It's a flaw because it takes losing to an nth degree, like negativity. Like, I hated it. But when I tell this story a lot because it was a great learning lesson years later.
Mhm.
When I auditioned at Idlewild Arts Academy, I was this new guy from High Point, North Carolina, coming into this international art school, auditioned for the orchestra, got a great scholarship to attend the school because my parents owned laundromats. They didn't have money to send a kid to boarding school.
Mhm.
I got a great scholarship. Got in, auditioned. I got seated first cello.
Wow.
was just
I'm
like-
sure previous first cellist was thrilled with that.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, I am the shit, and it went straight to my head, which is the worst thing that could have happened. I
Oh.
should have been seated last cello,
Then you have something you have to work for.
and it really. But at the same time, these things all just kind of fall into the
Yeah.
right way it should. There's no like, I don't believe in like this like a cosmic alignment that got me to the place that I am, but there are things in my life where I'm like, that was such a learning experience for
Yeah.
me that really helped shape the person that I am.
Mm.
And it truly did make me later on in life realize the benefit of working harder than everyone else.
Yes, because there's talent can get you so far.
But there's no substitute for working harder than everyone else.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing that I learned, because kids that were seated below me
Mm-hmm.
were going to conservatory. And I was like, what? I'm supposed to go to conservatory. And I didn't get in.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And it's
okay.
because I just didn't work.
So how soon do you learn this lesson?
When I didn't get accepted to any conservatory.
Wow. Okay. And that's gotta be, and also you're a 17-year-old kid or something like that for the first time away from
Oh yeah.
your
Wide open.
well, this frequent get together of family.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like, you don't have this family unit keeping you in check, keeping your ego in check.
Keeping the ego there.
And how do you eat during this time? If you're used to your mom cooking every single meal, what do you do?
I recently told this story to my sister because I was a very good kid.
Mhm.
I didn't get in trouble much growing up,
Mhm.
because I think in a lot of ways is because I was behind the cello. I was too busy
Yeah.
practicing the cello. I didn't
Kept
have
you off the streets,
right. I didn't have
man.
the opportunity to go and do things that I would get in trouble for. But in my high school, my mom would send me these care packages of like ramen and nori and rice, like microwave rice.
Mhm.
That was like a new invention. And then like she would send me kimchi in the mail.
Oh.
And she would send me all these like preserved foods because she was like, what are you eating?
Yeah.
Like, are you eating cafeteria food? I'm like, Mom, I miss Korean food so much.
What's your gut bacteria going to be like if you're so used to having kimchi all the time? Because it's so
It's
powerful.
so good. Yeah.
It's delicious and it's so good for you.
Yeah, it is. And I missed it. Growing up, having nothing but that to eat at 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
You eat rice and kimchi 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
Along with all the other stuff that my mom makes. But those things are staples. And so I get to this high school. I'm eating like none of that. I'm like, Mom, can you please send me some kimchi, some ramen, some. The only time I got in trouble in high school, I was a prefect, which means I was kind of like, I don't even know what the right term is, like a guidance person at the dorm. Something like
you're a cop.
It's a thing that they appoint to you to like make you feel like you're some more important than you are. I don't even know how to explain it, but I was supposed to be like an example of like a good person who didn't get in trouble, and I was cooking ramen in my bathroom on a hot pad.
Oh no.
I got busted by a dorm parent.
Busted for ramen.
I was like,
the Joe Kwon story.
It crushed me. I felt so bad that I betrayed the trust of my cool dorm parent.
Oh my God! Did your mom get mad? Did she find out? Did she get mad?
She didn't find out. They didn't care.
Oh, but you're struggling internally.
But I struggled. I was like, I can't believe I did that.
Oh my God! It still seems like it's like weighing on you. It's
kind of, yeah. I mean, because it was like I don't like disappointing people in general, but I was like, oh, I can't believe I did. That was so wrong.
You bad
bad kid.
Oh my gosh. I'm starting to get the signs from our producer, so like we got to get to the part where I feel like I could ask you a million questions about all of this. But so you're thinking you're going to get into classical, and
I for sure.
But then how did you so then where do you go from there? Because I know where you are now, and and the kind of band that you're in, which is not a classical.
Yeah, nowhere near it.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting band too, because it's something that has made its way into the mainstream in a really beautiful way.
Yeah,
like
organic way.
Yeah.
We never got a hit. We never skyrocketed to the top or anything. We're just kind of slowly.
But at the same time, it feels like everybody knows your band.
That's good.
Like it's one of those things where it has cultural saturation.
It does, yeah. In a weird way, people know us and people don't know us equally. Like it's amazing how many people I'll run across where I don't ever start with, I'm Joe Kwon from the Avett Brothers. You ever heard of us?
See, I do. I'm like, I know Joe Kwon from the.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because personally, I'm just like, well, does that matter? Does that matter? Is that tied to my identity? Like, is that who I am, or who I want to be? And so I'll be like, well, I'm a musician, and most people will press. Well, what kind of music do you play? What do you play?
It can mean a lot of different things,
right? And so most people will be like, oh, you play classically? I'm like, no, I'm in a rock band. Once they find out I play cello. Oh, okay, that's cool. What kind of music do you play? I'm like, well, I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm usually like, I play in a band called the Avett Brothers, and like 9 times out of 10, I've never heard of them.
Maybe I'm running in a crowd.
It's interesting. The food world does really, I think, they have their ear closer to the ground in new music than most.
Let's talk about what that looks like. Why there is this synergy? Is it because you are? And I will note also, you have a website. Actually, I went to your website today and it wasn't up.
Yeah, I took it down today because it's getting revamped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it is this wonderful thing called like Food on Tour.
Taste on Tour.
Taste on Tour. Sorry, Taste on Tour. And it's this, and you're a wonderful photographer.
Oh, thanks.
But can you explain a little bit about what it is? Because I think this is such a fascinating thing. Yeah.
So it initially started as a way of documenting kind of like the cool places that I would come across when I'm on tour. Like cool, it could be food or beverage or whatever, but mostly food, or neat, cool chefs that I would meet, along the way. And it was just a way for me to document it for myself and then also share it with people who are coming to our shows. Like, we're going to be in Cincinnati. I'm going to go to this really cool, like...
Chili parlor?
Right. Or some old breakfast place that I would go to. And that was how I started it. And I was talking to Ray earlier today about how as your band gets larger, you get forced further and further outside of town.
Yeah.
And so therefore, what used to be in the middle of town playing for 600-seater, rock club, we'd be pushed out to a shed that's 45 minutes outside of town.
Mhm.
So now all of a sudden I can't go out to eat. So really the website had to change, which is what's going on right now. Is we're kind of rethinking the kind of idea behind the website.
Well, we've been talking about the sort of food and connection to home. And so you are a person who tours all the time. And I know you have I was reading up on your kitchen that you've designed at home, which is really, really beautiful. How do you eat on the road? I mean, I know that's a big, huge question, but if it's this thing that keeps you grounded and you're constantly traveling, how do you take that opportunity? Because there's food as fuel. Obviously, you have to eat every day, or else that wouldn't work out so well for you.
Yeah.
So what choice do you have in the matter? How deliberate are you about your food selections, and how do you physically get the food?
Yeah. So one of my roles that I was brought in as early on in the band, because I came in as not just the cellist when I came into the Avett Brothers. They were in a state of growing, and I was just happened to be the next person that they added. I was playing 3 songs a night with them, and then the rest of the time I would change guitar strings, change banjo strings, set up the stage, things like that, book our hotel rooms, figure out where we're going to eat. That was one of my jobs.
Yeah.
And so I would research, find the restaurants that we should go to, like nearby or whatever. Trying to see which ones are doing cool stuff, which ones are just kind of pumping out food and just throwing it out there. Early days, that's how it was. I would go and pick up to-go food.
Right.
And bring it back to the van, and that's how I would eat. Now, having a crew of, we have 20-some people on the road with us, plus local crew that comes in.
Is this a bus thing?
Yeah, we have buses and tractor trailers, and their drivers, and people need to eat. Everyone needs to eat. And so now I'm involved in the catering planning side of it. So we have a food writer that tells the descriptions of what we need, in terms of what do we need? Like, we need fresh vegetables, we need organic, ethically raised meats, we need, no nitrates of any sort. We need, anything that's like a healthier version of the cheap way of doing it. We try to go there.
Right.
Obviously that doesn't, so many times people do not actually read writers, which is unfortunate, but I get to have a hand in how food is selected. So that's how I'm able to keep up that kind of connection with it. Yeah.
I think that's really lovely. And have you been able to kind of bend people to your tastes?
100%.
Okay. So in what ways have you been able to do that?
Well, I mean, it's just as simple as like, we're going to have tacos, I want to have really great tacos.
Well, it also gives you it's a really exciting, and this is why I think there's a lot of overlap between food and music, because it's a lens through which to see travel.
Yeah.
And it's the taste of a place, it's the sound of a place, and it's a way to show people who you are, what this place is about, and give a little bit of your soul to somebody. And I really think that there's that, and also chefs are traveling constantly. Yeah,
much more than me, it feels like.
and you're pretty, like, what is this current tour? By the way, congratulations on the new album.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
It's a brand new baby, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Only I don't even know what the date is today.
The date is the 7th.
Yeah, so it's 3 days old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so marvelous.
Yeah.
And you're on an epic tour. now.
Yeah. Constantly touring. Yeah. We have Fallon tonight, which I guess when this airs, it will not be tonight.
But there are always videos,
Yeah.
so people can see. And you've been on there many times.
Many times. Yeah, it's one of my favorite places to go back. I posted a picture today, and I just said something like, "We're back home" or something like that. Because it feels that way.
I saw your Instagram.
Yeah, I love it. It's just great people. It's always good to see people that when they see you, they smile.
That's really, really lovely.
It's nice.
So then when you do get to go home, you are married with an excellent dog.
Yes. 2 now.
Oh, 2 dogs. Okay, what are the dogs' names?
We have Simone and Towns, our new puppy.
Towns. So I know, is there like Good Dog Simone? There's a hashtag
Yeah,
associated with
Simone the Friendly Dog
Simone the
and
Friendly.
Towns the Friendly Dog now.
Oh,
It all started with Buckley, our previous dog, who passed away, but Buckley the
oh,
Friendly Dog, and
R.I.P. Buckley.
yeah, he
Dog-
was a sweet one.
Oh, I mean, so yeah, it's dogs are so special. Like
They
they're
are.
really his. By the way, if you follow Joe on Instagram, like there's some good dog content on there. Like really, seriously, excellent like pup content
Thanks.
right there.
I love puppies.
So when you get back home,
Mhm.
and do you want to cook? Do you want to order in? Do you want to be cooked for? What does that look like? What is
Oh,
your
yeah.
first meal once you have a little bit of time back home?
This is an awesome question because I've been thinking about what I'm going to eat when I get home.
Yeah.
My wife and I have been on Whole30 for a month.
Oh,
Which
I'm sorry.
Exactly. As a food person and as
Horrifying.
a traveling person, it's very difficult to be
Yeah.
on. And we just got off of it on record release day was our last day on it.
Oh, bless.
And since we've been on it, Ashley's new restaurant, Poolside Pies, has opened, but we were unable to eat there because we were on Whole30. And so I'm like, I am going to get home and I'm going to go eat her new pizza. And that's what I'm going to do. I really, really, really try to go and visit my friends' restaurants when I get home first, just because it's another way for me to connect with them, say hello, you know.
And you live in Raleigh.
Live in Raleigh.
And that is such a good
food town.
Between Ashley Christensen, Scott Crawford,
Chidi Kumar,
another musician.
Visa, another musician. Yeah.
Oh,
so many amazing people in that town.
It's really, so Chidi's restaurant is Garland, and it is magical. Ashley Christensen has an empire.
Yeah.
Scott Crawford, what are his current ones?
He's got Crawford and Sons and Jolie.
Yeah, plus he's just a good dude.
A very good dude, yeah.
Yeah, that is and the Umstead is not far from you.
The Umstead is 10 minutes drive. Stephen Devereaux Green, the chef there.
He's so good. He made me the gothest scallop dish.
Oh, he's brilliant that way.
He's really, really talented.
He is.
So then you get home and you make this meal. Like, how much do you cook once you get back?
We host many, many dinner parties.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do all the time is host dinner parties.
Yeah.
It's not a chore at all for me. My wife and I love to have people over because I've gone so much. I want to be home, but I want to see my friends. So it's a very selfish thing. I'm like, why don't you guys come over? We'll cook for you.
Lovely. And is she out on tour with you?
Just this one because of New York, and it's an amazing city, and we get to go eat in places.
That is such a good and beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like there is so much more to say about like the intersection of all of this. And I feel like increasingly like music festivals are really paying attention to good food.
No
and
doubt.
Food festivals are starting to pay more attention to music.
Yeah.
And I think every chef wants to be a rock star and vice versa.
They are. They don't have to want to be. They already are.
Oh my gosh. I had Octo Nawab on the podcast, and
God.
he was a serious bassist. And I think he's still like, that is his outlet. And I've been talking to more and more chefs who they were saying that their stress outlet is that they badly play the guitar or bass, or Kelly Fields is learning how to drum.
Oh, she's so cool, man.
Yeah.
She's such a cool person.
I actually almost want to see an event. Gosh, maybe Food and Wine. Hey, people, like bosses at Food and Wine. Let's say we do an event where it's all the musicians cooking and the chefs in a band.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. I think we just invented something.
This could be amazing.
Cool event for this. So I'd been getting the signs where I'm going to start asking you the questions that I ask everybody.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So you, Joe Kwon, are out in the universe. You're seeing the world, and you're having like this incredible experience, and you're giving it your all out there. I can't even imagine the psychic and physical energy it must take to be away from home and to be up on stage and give this performance. What is the selfish thing you want for you?
Man, I think silence. Like that's the thing I want a lot of the time, is to be quiet.
Yeah.
And not have to. There's this whole thing. I call it being on, And when I am outside of my house, outside of my dining room, and in public, I hate that I have to monitor my behavior.
because you were a known person and
And social media is a very strong tool. But luckily, again, I'm not that bad of a person. So only a handful of times have I kind of gotten to a point where I'm like, probably shouldn't have done that, And luckily there were no cell phones out or whatever to capture whatever probably benign thing that I did that I in my head have exploded into
catastrophized.
But yeah, so to be in a place where I can be quiet and not have to be on would be sometimes nice.
For what it's worth, whenever your name is mentioned amongst food people, I don't know many musicians or whatever, but amongst food people, everybody says, "Oh, Joe, oh, Joe, you're beloved by people
That's amazing.
in food." Like I was having a conversation with our mutual friend Lisa Donovan right before I got here, and she wanted an extra hug delivered to
Love
you
her.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So you're not doing bad, no
Oh,
matter
good.
what it is. But I absolutely get that thing. And sort of side question to that, what does silence look like for you? Does that mean the absence of any sound, or does that mean the absence of voices, or what is that?
Oh, absence of all sound.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a room in your house?
No, our whole house is quiet. We don't play we don't play music in the house. I'm an active listener. I like to listen if I'm listening to music, and if I'm not, it's quiet. I was telling Ray this as well. The only time I play music in the background is when we have guests over, because it makes people feel comfortable.
Yeah, because there's that sort of awkward. Like if you're in a restaurant, there's no music.
Yeah.
It's a little.
Yeah, and there's this thing where it's hard for me even to do that, because I'll be like, oh, okay, listen to this right here. I'll interrupt conversation to say that sometimes, which is super rude. But I get excited.
Professional thing, though.
It's so hard, like it's tough for me to just let this cool thing pass and not share it. Like, but just listen to this bass line, right?
That's lovely. I think that's really a beautiful thing. And I see my husband, like I see him sort of doing that.
Check out for a little bit.
That thing, and just trying to figure in his, his hearing isn't as good as it used to be, but like he's actually very talented musician. He wrote our little theme song for this.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. But it's nice, and we sort of part of our communication is we do call out the cool thing and stuff. So I appreciate when people do that.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. So what is your comfort food?
Ooh, I have a handful of dishes that my mom makes that if I'm feeling overwhelmed or emotionally vulnerable, which is pretty rare, and my wife will tell you this as well, but when I get there, it's bad.
Yeah.
I can call my mom. She hears it in my voice, and she's just like, "Are you healthy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You don't have anything to worry about."
That's lovely. Can she just like record that and
It's amazing.
And send it to me?
It's so amazing to hear. Coming from my mom. Anyone else, I'd be like, yeah, but my problems are real.
But
from her, she's like, if you're not healthy, then I'll worry.
That's and what are the dishes?
So it'll be there's this sweet and sour pork fried dish that she makes that's amazing. There's this black bean dish called you've seen it before. It's just black beans sauce over noodles, called jjajangmyeon. There's another noodle dish that's a broth based with chili peppers and seafood called jampong. I mean, those are like these dishes. I can just taste them now, and they just calm me down. Like, eat them up.
I wish we could have some right here. That sounds so beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, what is the last meal that you had that made you emotional?
That's a good one. I was in Tokyo last year. Oh, no, not in Tokyo. This was in Kyoto. Either in Kyoto or Osaka. I can't remember where this restaurant is right now because that was such a whirlwind tour of Japan. But we went to this restaurant called Hajime. And it was one of those meals where, like, you walk in and you're like, they're going to nail it.
You just knew.
Yeah.
You feel it from the vibe.
I'm like, dang. I walk in and I'm just like, oof. Yeah, this is pretty amazing. Like, I haven't even had a sip of anything yet, and they're going to nail this. And the first course comes out. I'm just like melting, like, what in the world? this is far beyond what I knew that they were going to nail it with. It was a truly amazing meal. There have been others, but that one just popped into my head as like, oh, I wish I could do that again.
I love that. So what is the last meal that somebody cooked for you in their home?
Well, I'm just making sure this is correct. My nephew's birthday.
How old?
He turned 10. My sister cooked. He wanted a taco party. I love tacos.
I do too. Like it's
like perfect.
and like taco, like the old school, like Ortega, like hard
That's what she
shell.
did.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it.
With the seasoning pack and the ground beef.
We did actually. It's funny. We did a taco bar party recently with friends, and my friend who does all the importing of Korean stuff. Like she grew up in Seoul, and she grew up very wealthy in Seoul. She had never had taco night, so we got to. I think she's 37 now, so at like age 37, we got to introduce her to taco night. Wow. She was so happy.
Yeah.
It was.
I get excited about taco night, and I've had taco night.
Oh my God, with like all the shreds of cheese and stuff like that. But it was such a beautiful thing because I grew up taking it for granted, or we would have it at school lunch or whatever. But to see somebody's face as they experienced it for the first time was
a hard shell taco with like shredded lettuce and sour cream.
And now, like they make them in Cool Ranch too, or like extra. Like they vary the flavor. Oh, they had Doritos version of the taco shell. It was just the best.
Why is it so good?
It's just so good. It's like scientifically engineered to be amazing.
It is. That's what I said. It's true. It is.
Yeah. Oh my! You are the first person who I'm actually going to ask this question in reverse. Because I always ask, the question I usually ask is, what living musician would you want to cook for and what would you cook for them? So I'm going to flip it and say, what chef would you want to cook for?
Ooh.
Who you have not cooked for before.
Who I have not cooked for before.
Because I know you've cooked with/for plenty of chefs.
Yeah. I just because I love her so much, and I love cooking for people just to like share a meal. I want to cook for Sarah Grunberg.
Oh, she's so good.
I love her.
Her food is so good. What would you make for her?
I would probably do some sort of Japanese open flame dinner. Yeah.
My God. Hey, Sarah, go over to Joe's house for dinner. Like that's such a good choice.
Yeah, she taught me how to make fresh pasta.
Oh my gosh.
At Blackberry Farm.
Good, nice work if you can get it. That's really lovely. And final question, you have 5 uninterrupted minutes for self-care. What do you do?
That's actually pretty easy for me. I would probably sit in front of, and this is a new thing because I just kind of fallen back in love with listening to vinyl.
Yeah.
Because my turntable died, and I just recently got a new one, but I've been just sitting in front of my speakers and listening to an amazing album for 5 minutes is enough to really set me in the right mood, calm me down.
What's the most recent one?
The most recent one that I could not sit for just 5 minutes was Alila Diane, To Be Still. Just an amazing album. Yeah.
I don't know this, but I'm going to go find it.
You need to go find it.
And I'm going to go have taco night.
Yeah.
Now. Thank you so much for coming in here.
Thank you. This has been so fun.
And if people want to find you on social, it's Joe Kwon 80, isn't it?
For everything.
Yeah. And if they want to find where you're on tour,
the AvettBrothers.com.
And I wish if we were in real time, I'd say go watch him on Fallon tonight. Yeah. But the videos will be up.
That's right. And we're always touring, so we're probably coming to your town.
Yeah. See if bring him something delicious to eat. Invite him over to dinner, and or if you see him, maybe let him have his quiet moment.
Yeah. Oh no! Do not let me have my quiet moment. Those moments, I am very willing to give up. If you see me on the street and you need to say hello, please say hello. I will give you a hug.
And buy the man a taco.
And buy me a taco.
Thank you so much to our guest today, Joe Kwon. Thank you to our producer, Jennifer Martnick, to Douglas Wagner for our delightful theme song. If you want to find us online, gosh, this podcast, it's Communal Table. And you can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on our new YouTube channel. You can go to foodandwine.com and find it there. You can probably, like, if you have like metal braces, you can probably get it through that, through the thing we just injected into your arm. You can get it through that as well. And if you like what you heard, stars are great. Comments are fantastic because they let us keep doing this thing, be found by the algorithm. It's all about the dang algorithm these days. And it helps us a lot. If you want to tell a friend, bully them into subscribing, that would be really, really great. If there's a guest you think we should be talking to, or some topic you want to hear addressed, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on Twitter at Kitten with a Whip, and I don't know, I'm not a very hard to find kind of person, so please let me know. And most importantly, take good care of yourself until the next time.